you
but we can
heard
get
from
started because
Ellen?
we do have a quorum. So in a minute.
Yeah, 'cause
We're gonna
I
roll.
reached out to her the other day to see if she had time to talk, and then we missed each other, and I sent her a message, and I never heard from her since.
I haven't talked to her recently, no.
And I was like, I hope they're okay. Like that's scary.
Yeah.
Oh yes, thank you. Are you good to go? Mr. Kleinpeter, are you good to go? Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call to order this December 19th, 2023 meeting to order. Would you please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Kuskevich?
Here.
Mr. Lister?
Here.
Ms. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Rettinger?
Here.
Ms. Lloyd is coming later.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to report on our last executive session. We discussed personnel, real estate, and matters of litigation. No action was taken. At this time, I'd like to move forward with Viola with a presentation.
All right, good evening, Council. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. My name's Justin Mendinsky. I'm a group manager of Water Wastewater Services. With me tonight is Stacy Hart. She is an engineer on my team. We are both with HRG. We are not with Veolia. The woman who was going to join tonight from Veolia, unfortunately, was a bit under the weather, so rather than see her spread any contagious sickness to anybody, she asked Stacy and I to present here this evening. Stacy and I have been working on a number of utility projects for the borough for a number of years, primarily on the water and wastewater systems, going back to when the system was operated by the Middletown Borough Authority. We work predominantly on capital improvements projects, but we also spend a good bit of time assisting with any type of operational matters that Veolia, now operating the system, may come against, if you will. And the reason for being here tonight is to provide a little bit of information regarding some regulation changes on two key elements. On the screen you see the words PFAS, or the letters PFAS, and we're going to talk about what that is, and we're also going to talk about some changes in regulation relative to lead service lines. I'm sure if you've seen the news, you've probably seen some of these words, so our goal is to really get out in front a little bit with some items that may ultimately be something that the Veolia team needs to address with the water system primarily, and because there may be some communications that come before the council and some of your constituents who obviously use the water system. So we do have a bit of a PowerPoint, as you can see here. We'll try to run through this relatively quickly, 10, 15 minutes, and we'll be glad to answer any questions you have at the end of the meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy.
Good evening, everybody. Like Justin said, we'll just go quickly through the agenda. I'll stop after the PFAS section and see if you guys have any questions on that, because it's kind of, there's two different regulations we're talking about, so we'll go through the first part. You want to go to the next slide? Just a really brief overview for those of you that don't know about PFAS. It's the shortened form for per and polyfluoroalkyl alkyl substances. Your most notable ones are going to be your PFOS and your PFOA. Another term for this, or more generic term, is your forever chemicals. That may be something that you've been hearing in the news. This was a man-made chemical that was developed around the 1940s, and it's actually comprised of over 4,000 different chemical compounds. I listed 6 up on the presentation because that is related to the EPA regulations that are coming out and were proposed. as you can see in the infographics, you can see that PFAS, a lot of different sources of where it comes from. It's present in consumer products and in the industry, and I really wanted to note the firefighting foams. You know, that is a PFAS contaminant, and it was highly used around airports and military bases for firefighting exercises and, you know, for fire suppression systems as well. How does PFAS get in the system? You can see it's produced in facilities. Then all that treated wastewater can be discharged into a stream. It gets into the water system. Again, the firefighting foams. That will eventually seep into the ground, run off into the groundwater. Then from the groundwater, that's where you're pulling it into your drinking water system that then serves the community. So I will first start with the PADEP regulations that came out. DEP published their regulations beginning of this year, and they have set a maximum contaminant level, or an MCL, for two of the PFAS. So your PFOA and your PFOS. You can see the contaminant levels that they've set it to, 14 for PFOAs and 18 parts per trillion for PFOAs. This goes into effect the beginning of 2024. And so Middletown or Veolia will be required to do an initial round of monitoring quarterly for that first year. Compliance, whether you're above or below that MCL level, will be based on a running annual average. And then after that initial monitoring period, depending on the results, Veolia will be required to either monitor quarterly or annually, or they can apply for waivers, which is very similar to the VOC waivers that Veolia currently applies for. The EPA regulations, so this was published by EPA in March of 2023. You can see that they also set an MCL for PFOA and PFOS, but much lower than what DEP does. So they're at 4. They also added 4 additional PFOS with an MCL of a 1 hazard index. It is anticipated that this regulation should be finalized by the end of 2023. I don't know if that's going to happen. I haven't heard any updates. Similar to what DEP is requiring, they're going to have to do an initial monitoring period. And similar to what DEP does, depending on the results, you may either be able to apply for a waiver or monitor annually, quarterly, and then there also is proposing a rule trigger level as well. So some PFAS testing that has already occurred. So DEP actually did some PFAS sampling, I believe back in 2021, 2022, for a slew of different public water supply systems across the state. Middletown was selected due to their proximity to the airport, and since it was also military housing at one point as well. And they tested at Wells 1, Wells 2, and Wells 3. There are 6 wells in the system. And you can see they tested for both PFOA, and you can see the results based on the sampling. The ones that I highlighted in red, if EPA does go through with proposing an MCL of 4, you would be over that MCL limit. But with DEP's, everything is below what the DEP MCL limits are. EPA did some testing for 6 different PFOAs that took place between 2013 and 2015. Those typically were applied to your very large systems. I don't believe Middletown was part of that monitoring period. But currently EPA is also doing another round of monitoring of 29 different PFOAs That monitoring period's beginning between January of 2023 to 2025. Veolia currently is not testing for those contaminants at this time, but they may begin testing in 2025, and that all depends on funding. On the next slide, for those of you that may not know where the wells are, wells 1 and 2 are off of Mill Street right before you cross into Royalton. Well number 3 is located in Pineford Village. I do want to note that well number 1 was actually drilled in 1933, so that's what those dates in parentheses are. Well number 2 was drilled in 1960, and well number 3 was drilled in 1958, and I believe became a source for Middletown in the 1970s. So that well was originally drilled for the military housing that occurred in that area. Now let Justin chime in.
We just wanted to kind of summarize there. Obviously, it's pretty technical. We got PFOS, PFOS. There's some, chemical terms there. Again, we wanted to make sure we brought this presentation tonight because you're hearing a lot of the forever chemicals. You hear on the radio and on television, Camp Lejeune, there's lawsuits, all kinds of things. We're not necessarily talking about that, but we are identifying that there are going to be some potential changes in regulatory action. Right now, we're not proposing along Veolia to make any changes to the treatment schemes at any of the wells. However, if some of those more strict compliance requirements do take effect, then that's something we'll have to work on and obviously evaluate what changes might need to be made. So a lot of times we come and give a presentation, someone might be thinking, oh, is there money? Is there going to be changes to user rates? Those kind of things. Not as a result of what we're here talking about yet tonight. So anything that might happen in the future with needing to make changes to your water system, those are, again, in the future. Nothing is yet on the precipice. So any questions relative to that component of the presentation that we have for you here this evening?
You mentioned that this could be in the future. What's the likelihood that these levels, the EP would make these levels to where we would have to put it on our radar?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, EPA is looking at a little more stringent, and what we typically see is that EPA is the branch that's above all the states. Obviously, that's the federal arm, if you will, of environmental protection, and they're going to suggest that the states adopt those stricter standards. Now, the states don't always necessarily follow that lead, but there's a lot of precedent when you see that happen. So I can't say I'm a betting man, and I can't guarantee one way or the other, but that's why we're already taking a look at what the water levels are now to determine would we be in compliance with those more strict requirements or not. So there is a possibility, obviously. I'm trying to answer it without being able to forecast the real answer there.
Seeing how we're so close to that already compliance level, what would be some mechanisms in place, like as far as filtration systems, like what would be the remedy and how could we start preparing in case that would happen?
Yeah, so a lot of times what we see, activated carbon filtration is really proven to be effective at removing the PFOS. That does have a cost and an operation and maintenance associated with it, but it is well known, well utilized for a lot of different types of contaminants in water, so it's very prevalent. And ultimately, what can we do? So through the compliance monitoring, we'll better see what those levels currently are, because as Stacy mentioned, some of those sample points were collected 2-3 years ago at a minimum. So we'll see if the changes might have occurred. We'll see if there's any seasonal variation. They like to do that over the course of the year to see if there's any seasonal variation. And then, obviously, if there are any treatment needs, we'll begin working on some of those preliminary design activities. We'll be here, I'm sure, talking with you again to keep you updated. Veolia, I think, tends to put some mailers out there usually on various changes, so I'm sure you'll see things of that nature.
Yeah, treatment would only be required at the wells that exceed your MCL limit, so you wouldn't necessarily need to treat all 6 wells. It would just be the wells that would exceed that limit.
Yeah. What would be from the hip ballpark figure for a treatment center per well? Are we talking like industry standards, 10 grand or 100 grand?
So I know with activated carbon, there is the initial upfront cost, but you do have to replace that carbon over a period of time once it degrades. So then there's also a maintenance cost associated with that type of technology.
It would be
It-
higher.
Yeah, it's
I
definitely
figured.
higher.
I figured. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to like, are we talking?
Yeah, there would certainly be
Yeah.
an upfront capital investment. I hesitate to throw out a number because we haven't been
Yeah.
asked to necessarily put one together. But you're not talking a small residential system for the size of your well facilities and the volume that they produce. It would be a pretty substantial undertaking, if you will. If there are buildings in place, that obviously helps because there's already something there, structure to house the equipment. One of the things we'd obviously look at the time too is it worth continuing to keep that particular well in service? What's its production, its value versus the cost and the treatment needs? So right now you have a number of well sources. We like to keep them all in operation because they're valuable. They're very valuable, right? Nobody likes to lose a well source. But we would do a lot of analysis just to know what's the most effective way to maintain compliance with these new limits when they go into effect.
So, for example, well 3 is already being treated for another contaminant with an air stripping tower. You've got site restrictions there because it's a parking lot owned by Pineford all around it, and that well only produces 70 gallons a minute. That might be one where when you look at the numbers, it's cheaper to close it down and not do anything. Because didn't the airport already install treatment for PFAS?
Good, yep.
So, okay, prime example. What did the airport spend to put their treatment system in? And I know we can't compare apples to apples. We know, anyone
They
knows.
already have a central treatment building for all their wells that they pump it all into because they have stripping tower there. So, and they have extra land space, so they're not gonna have the same, we're gonna have different challenges than they do, but, there's probably a dollar figure attached per gallon of treatment that you've gotta do. So that's why I say when you look at 70 gallons per minute versus 400 gallons per minute at well 1, it's more cost effective to treat at well 1 than it will be at well 3.
Yeah, we don't have.
Just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, the regulations are coming. EPA is definitely gonna set an MCL. There was a comment period, so they proposed the rule in March of this year. There was a comment period, and now they're looking at all the comments and taking that into consideration. The likelihood of it being less than 4 is very unlikely. If they're gonna increase it, but it's hard to tell. Hard to know. So.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much for helping Veolia out and stepping in for their absence.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, too.
Oh.
So,
Sorry,
Yeah, just-
sorry.
I
Not
just
rushing
wanted
you.
to talk about PFAS rather than,
Now we're
kind of jumping.
Going into lead, is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
So now we're moving on to, the lead service line inventory, or the service line inventory, as well as discussing the new proposed lead and copper rule improvements that just came out, end of November. So in regards to the lead service line inventory, this actually came about as part of the lead and copper rule update that the Trump administration proposed. So once the Biden administration came in, they decided that this was a very important thing that they weren't going to change, even though they were looking at, updating or, revising that rule themselves. So as part of this service line inventory, all community water systems are required to document their service lines. Every single service line that they have in their system, they are required to identify it. They are required to identify the material on both the water system owned side of the service line as well as the customer owned side of the line. They're meant to categorize and classify each service line. So that's pretty much identifying, hospitals or daycares or any of those high-risk facilities, if it were to have a lead line. It is also required to be updated annually. It also needs to be accessible to the public because Veolia falls under a certain population. They don't need to have a map online. So if you're over a certain population, you actually have to have like an online map where people can go and find it. But there does have to be a notice saying like, hey, this is available. We can tell you what your service line is made out of. And again, it goes to the next bullet point, the location, identifier for each service line. So it's just not specifically, there has to be like an identifier to a specific address. And this is required to be submitted and due to DEP on October 16th of 2024. So these are the most common types of service material that you'll find. You got your lead, the dull silver gray, easy to scratch. You got your galvanized, which is the silver gray. Also, a magnet will stick to it, and then your copper pipes. Based on our discussions with Veolia and our understanding, most of the system is comprised of galvanized and copper pipe. I believe they said once in a blue moon they will come across a lead service line. So, and then just briefly touch upon these proposed new lead and copper rule improvements. Again, like I said, it was just published end of November. I've not had a chance to read the 600-page document yet with it, but pretty much the summary is of this improvement is they want to do full replacement of any service lines classified as lead or galvanized requiring replacement. So full replacement means from the main to the front of the house. So both the public entity and the private entity, that needs to be replaced within 10 years. They want to make sure that all of the lead pipes have been located. So any pipe that was classified as unknown in that initial inventory, you need to verify that material. And they want to also verify that anything that was considered a non-lead is actually a non-lead. So they're actually going to require excavation or CCTV or something to verify that that material is what it said. They want to improve some sampling points. They're also proposing of lowering the lead action level. So currently it's set at 15. They want to lower it to 10. And they're going to take away the trigger level that goes with that. And then lastly, it's just they want to strengthen the protections to reduce exposure. This leads to more public outreach, more communication to the customers of the system. And currently this regulation is proposed to be finalized prior to October 16th of next year. So
A couple of things on this one. Why the lead is a biggie. A number of years ago, you all probably heard of the Flint, Michigan, where some of the changes in our water source created lead contamination of water. It does definitely pose health hazards to certain classes of folks, your young children or your immunocompromised and some elderly folks. What ultimately Veolia will need to do, as Stacy summarized, is they have to categorize all the services in town on both their side, the private side, or the public side, as well as on the private side. Luckily, when we've gone through and we've done a number of these water main replacement projects, we've only run into very minimum number of lead services, a handful of that. So we don't expect a lot, but ultimately, because of the fact that we have to try and categorize what's on the private side, that a lot of times is going to involve communication going out to the users of the system. So a lot of places, they'll send out mailers and ask for folks to respond by indicating what they know is in their home. And there's actually a little test that you can do to scratch the pipe. If you're unsure if it's copper, it's pretty easy to see, right? Most people know what copper looks like. If it's that dull gray, is it the galvanized metal? Is it lead? There are ways to try and do a little scratch test with a coin to see what it is. I anticipate that Veolia is going to have those types of communications go out to the users, and so we wanted to present here tonight to make sure the council is aware that that likely is going to be a step towards building that inventory next year and get to that compliance step in October. So they're working their team to start to get this thing in full gear. Wanted to have this presentation tonight so you would be aware of why that is something your users, your constituents are seeing. And ultimately, we hope that there's not a lot of lead services
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So you just said that they'll be sending out correspondence to the users to do their own test on their own pipe to determine the material. How are they determining what it is from the water main to the property boundary in that?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple different ways that can be done. We'll kind of tag team this. If we know the age of the home, if it's a home from a certain
91.
year forward, we know that it's likely not going to be lead. In fact, just based on the date of construction, that can be counted as not lead. It's likely going to be copper, plastic, or something like that. If we have subdivision plans showing what materials were installed for the community, we can utilize that to identify it. Where we've gone through and we've done our water replacement projects, we've actually already classified those materials that we've come across. We can use that information. For the first stage, it's unknown. They can put unknown. They might be able to do potholing. There are other ways to basically determine what's in the ground if we don't already know it.
Because out of the three things you just mentioned, one, this is the oldest town in Dauphin County. So all these homes are 1700s, 1800s,
Yep.
early 1900s, so the 91 thing doesn't work. Two, there's only been certain streets that have even had water main replacements done since I've been here. So that's not going to be documented for those that haven't been touched. So my question is, what do you do then? What's the next step? Are you telling me we're going to be drilling holes through all these streets?
Yeah, so they may or may not do that. They can list unknown for the time being for the initial classification, but I think there will ultimately be some additional requirement to determine what that is past October 2024.
Yeah, so right now, there's this initial inventory, which is due October 2024. It's pretty much, they want you to list every single service, identify as much information as you have. It is okay to have unknowns in that inventory. And then as part of these new proposed regulations coming out, Veolia will be required to verify that information within that 10 years. So right now, and technology is really kind of just starting to emerge for identifying lead service lines, but I know right now DEP allows potholing. They allow internal CCTV work. So you would have to work with the customer in order to get access to the home, wherever the meter is. That's assuming that you can get the camera through the service line.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How typical is it for the material behind the curb to be the same material as the material in front of the curb? So if behind the curb is the customer and the customer reports that it's copper, what's the likelihood that before the curb is going to be the same material? Like, is it always from end to end copper, or is there transitions, or I mean, I guess there could be a transition, but I mean, like, what's
Usually
the
there is, because
Yeah.
ultimately when the main was installed, I'm assuming that was around the 1700s when someone went in, the water obviously wasn't then. But when water lines are installed, typically they're installed to the property line, and then the owner of the property
Picks
runs-
up.
Yes. Now, there are a lot of times where it's the same, no doubt about that. But we can't be confident because, again, the homeowner would have hired a plumber to run that portion there beyond the right of way, beyond the curb.
what I was just thinking is if the residents, the ratepayers, gave really good data back on what was behind the curb, how much of that data could be extrapolated to, you know, we can say that what's before the curb, and I guess there's really no way of, I'm trying to avoid, you know, digging holes all across the borough of Middletown, and,
Yeah.
and even CCT, I mean, that's an active water pipe, so I would imagine, I'm no expert, imagine the water would have to be shut off and drained.
For the
For the
you would have
CCT,
to-
you'd have to, I would imagine you would have to physically shut the water off so that you could snake something in there, because you'd be looking at, you know, to be able to get a good view of it. And there again, there's probably only half inch, 3/4 maybe, half inch or 3/4 inch pipe.
Yeah, and I know DEP right now also allows for sequential sampling. So what that means is you have a certain size bottle. Pretty much you have to tell the homeowner not to run their water at all. Got to sit stagnant in the line for at least 6 hours. And then after that stagnation period, then you would turn on a faucet. You pretty much have like 5, 8 jugs. It depends on where the water main is to where you're pulling the water from, and you just keep filling up those bottles. You sample that for lead, and then you can kind of see where there may be peaks in lead. That's another way to verify. That's approved by DEP. I know they're also coming out with equipment that can also be used to detect the lead service lines, but I know that's not, currently that is not an approved method by DEP for verification, but that's not to say in a year or two it could be, because that is an emerging technology right now.
It's just hard because not only is Middletown very old, but roughly 60% of Middletown is renters. So now you have, imagine landlords or homeowners getting these letters because they pay the water bill, and they're trying to coordinate this stuff with tenants, which is a whole nother animal on top of the situation, you know.
No, that's why, we wanted to have this presentation here tonight again. First thing's getting that, inventory pulled together that at least identifies where all the services are. There's no doubt going to be some that are unknown, some that are challenging to determine on either side what is the material. That's where there's some boots on the ground type of stuff to occur yet. Any other questions? Those were great questions.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you for allowing us to be
Yes,
here.
thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, do I have public comment on agenda items? Seeing no public comment, agenda item number 1.
Do I have a motion to approve council meeting minutes for December 5th, 2023 meeting as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Kluskevich, second by Councilor Lister. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Agenda item number 2.
Do I have a motion to approve the payment of bills as shown on the accounts payable list dated December 14th, 2023, which is for the period of December 1, 2023 through December 14, 2023, and to ratify approval of such bills already paid and to authorize the appropriate officials to take the required action to make those payments?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Kluskevich, second by Councilor Miller. Any questions or comments on the bills? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Agenda item number 3.
Do I have a motion to award the bid for grass trimming to Laudermilk Landscapes for the time frame of April 1st, 2024 through November 15th, 2024, as per the proposal submitted December 13th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Kluskevich, second by Councilor Lister. Any questions or comments on the bid for the grass? How much was it? Do we know? Just out of curiosity.
50-some thousand? 52,000, roughly.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Agenda item number 4.
Do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-14 approving the temporary extension of the Royalton Sewage Treatment Agreement until March 31st of 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Kluskevich, second by Councilor Lister. Any questions or comments on the Royalton agreement? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Agenda item number 5, Mr. Klein-Peter.
Okay, this month my report has a whole lot of housekeeping items on it that we are looking to add to the agenda for your approval at the reorganization meeting in January. The first one, if we'll look there at, since we covered number 1, we're looking at number 2, is the approval, putting on the agenda the approval of all the dates for our things such as Trick or Treat, normally held the 4th Thursday of October, Christmas tree lighting event, the Saturday closest to Thanksgiving with a rain date of December 1st, fireworks, which are normally funded by donations raised by the mayor and are held the Saturday closest to Labor Day with a rain date of Sunday. So if there's no objections or questions or comments, we'll put those on the agenda for your vote.
Please.
Number 3 there, in January of 2024, we'll need to advertise the attached list of 2024 meetings to be reviewed and which we'll need approved at that meeting. Once the dates are agreed upon, we can then advertise them. And so if you have no problem, we'll put that on the agenda as well, the dates for next year.
First and third Tuesday?
Yes.
I think we need to revisit this with the school district situation. If they're gonna maintain, we talked about that at the beginning of this year.
Mhm.
Didn't do anything. I think it's unfortunate if the public would have to choose between that meeting and our meeting. I think we should be opposite of them.
We can definitely talk about it with the new council.
Well, you could talk about it at this workshop too, if you want, and then
Oh, yeah, we'll talk
you
about
could
it.
have something available to vote on at the January meeting, because we have to vote on the meeting dates at that meeting. So,
Makes
if
a
you want
difference.
to pull out your phones
I
and look
can't
at
do-
calendars or something.
I can't do the 4th Tuesday. If you're moving it by weeks, I cannot do the 4th Tuesday.
It doesn't even have to be Tuesday. It could be a Monday, it could be a
Yep.
Wednesday. All I'm saying is they're not gonna change their schedule, and I think this was actually your effort. You had brought up previously about the fact that they're
Yep.
always on the same nights.
Well, we can, give you the regular calendar that we have done historically, and we could have an alternate one. If you, or 2 alternate ones, you wanna vote on them, or, unless you wanna, if you take time between now and that meeting, to talk to each other and put something together and give it to us, we'll
Okay.
do it, but, okay. There will be a vacancy for a 2-year and a 4-year term, in January, so, do you want us to put, interviews or appointments for the appointments to that opening on the agenda for the January meeting, or will that be at a subsequent meeting, you think, the 3rd meeting of the month in January, or 2nd meeting in January?
Second meeting of the month.
Yeah.
My opinion, this is just my opinion, I think that the next council should be seated and then will be determined
At
which,
the next meeting.
which seat, is gonna be vacated, and then that body can move to put it on for the second meeting.
Gotcha.
That would be my recommendation. It's,
Yeah, that would work.
Agreed.
it's just a recommendation.
Okay, number 5 is informational. Dauphin County sent a letter. I think I don't know if I have it in your packet, but they wanted to know if anybody wanted to sit on as a representative for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. You don't have to decide now, but if you, let me find my letter. Let me see what it says. Here somewhere. December, Dauphin County Solid Waste submitted the county's municipal solid waste plan revision to the Department of Environmental Protection for approval. Subsequently, Department requested that we withdraw the plan due to several deficiencies. Since then, the county has contracted with MSW Consultants to assist with the plan revision. And then they asked one of our staffers who, Lori, in our front office, if she wanted to serve on the advisory committee, but, she was not interested in doing that. It's not a requirement, but if there is somebody else who has such an interest, I just wanted to bring it to your attention and let us know. Item number 6, Bixler Pyrotechnics has indicated they would be interested in doing Labor Day fireworks again this coming year. They said they could hold our 2023 price, however, it would be a reduction in the number of fireworks that they display at that price. They suggested to keep it, close to what we had this year would be 12-2. So I didn't know if you guys wanted that on the agenda for the upcoming meeting. You wanna hold off on that and talk about that some more?
I'm okay either way.
I'm fine
Mayor,
putting it on.
anybody have any input?
What's the threshold before we have to?
11, well, you have to stay under 12-2.
I'm okay either way. So, I don't.
I'm fine putting it on the agenda.
Number of boards will need new members as terms expire at the end of the year. Ken Whitebread Sr. serves on the vacancy board. His term expires at the end of this month. He said he's willing to serve another term, so there's no objections. We'll have that on your agenda.
Okay.
Rhonda Salomon and Jerry Blanche serve on the library board, and theirs expires the end of the month. Rhonda's interested in continuing to serve another term. Jerry is not. A letter of interest to serve on the library board was received from Casey Fenstermaker. So we have two names, one who's willing to serve again and a new one that we can put on the agenda for your consideration in January. Historic Restoration Commission, letter of interest from Megan Bennett. Shirley Clark, interested in serving another term. Then we have Joanna Kane, Jenny Miller, and Ellen Willenbecker have indicated interest in serving again on the Planning Commission. Jack Still's term on the Zoning Hearing Board ends the end of this year. Jack's indicated he'd be interested in serving another term. Todd Webb and Casey Kleckner's terms on the Civil Service Commission expire at the end of the year. They've indicated they're willing to serve another term. And Ellen Willenbecker has been serving as an alternate on the Mara Board, and that term is up this year. Ellen has indicated she's willing to serve again on the Mara Board as the alternate. So all those boards, any questions or
Objections? I think no. Okay.
So then we're down to number 14. Every year the borough does a resolution to PennDOT sends for banners placed over the state highway, the square. We'll have that on the agenda. That's another housekeeping item. And informational item, PennDOT is going to be doing contracting with Tri-State Traffic Data to collect traffic data on roads within the borough in order to prioritize potential safety improvements. The study will be conducted between this month and April 2024. Another informational item, item number 16, Dauphin County Board of Elections has approved a plan for the consolidation of Middletown Borough's 2nd Ward, 1st Precinct, and 2nd Ward, 2nd Precinct. The plan is to consolidate into one ward and will not impact the borough as council is elected at large. The merger needs approval from the Court of Common Pleas, and this has to do with poll worker recruitment. Both precincts vote at Fink Elementary currently, so the impact on voters is minimum. If approved, new voter ID cards would be mailed to those voters in the new 2nd Ward. So they're having trouble getting enough volunteers to work for each precinct, so.
I actually think that makes sense because there's 2 polls at one location.
So that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Peter. Agenda item number 6, codes.
I guess that'll be me too, because Jason's
Yeah, you're
out
up.
with an illness. I think he has a very short,
We won't complain.
report this
short.
month. It's all informational items. If you have any questions or any comments about codes, why let me know and I can take it back to Jason and report back to him.
I don't have any questions. Anybody have any questions? That was simple. Agenda item number 7, electric report. Mr. Wilsbach.
I have no action items this month. The only thing I would like to say is that we met today with HRG and Cooper Engineering, and the substation is very close to being sent out to bid. So probably by January it will be out for bid looking to March, or February or March for accepting. So,
So we better get with our investment people and, talk to them about the time frame for borrowing the second.
yeah, he's gonna come up with a time, actually, I'm sorry, he said that usually whoever wins the, bid will come up with a time frame as far as,
Well, you're talking construction time.
Correct.
I'm talking about time frame when the money gets in our.
for the money, yes.
We don't wanna have the construction start before the money's.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
we'll have to, have to coordinate that.
correct. So I have, does anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Excellent. Agenda item number 8, finance. Sally?
Hi, everyone. I don't have any action items on mine either, informational. I do want to let you know that we had our pre-audit on Friday. It's a pre-audit, it's just all preliminary, requests. But we will be scheduled in, towards the end of February, early March, for the regular audit time. Anybody have any questions? Great, thank you.
Excellent, Sally. Thank you. Agenda item number 9, fire. Is anybody here from the fire department would like to give a report? Seeing none. Agenda item number 10, highway. Director Miller.
Good evening, everybody. A couple things. We received an email. Resident had some concerns out on Spring Street regarding speeding and some parking issues. HRG study covered that. And worked with Director Wright on a few things out there. We did install one of the speed humps late last week. So there is one of them out there. I can no longer get hot mix material this year, so the other one will have to be completed in the springtime. Spent some time sitting out there watching it, and people are surprised when they go over it the first time. But it does slow them down. It is an obvious deterrent to speeding. Leaf season the collection schedule has ended. Staff is still going around. Folks are still putting leaves out, so it's just kind of a
Hit or miss.
as needed thing at this point. They did a good job cleaning up most of our grounds and facilities, so we're in pretty good shape as far as leaves and everything going into winter. Wexcon's still working. They're going to work most of the winter out in Oak Hills. As far as the water line project out there goes, they have been doing concrete and some restoration work. The concrete, what was not finished last week, will not be done in concrete this year. It's all paved. All the sidewalks are paved and everything. There's no gravel. They'll continue to, it's too cold to do the concrete now, so they'll pick back up in the spring to finish out some of their ADA ramps out there. Working with Mara to develop a usage agreement. I'll be bringing that. Nate looked at it since I had typed this up. It's kind of a spin-off of some of the things that were discussed in the PROS plan as far as different organizations utilizing our parks and facilities, and kind of spelling out who is responsible for what and how it all is supposed to work. They are, every one of where they operate is our ground, our buildings, and we just need to kind of define the relationship a little bit better with them. I just have 2 action items. I would request to add approval. There was an SEI quote for the purchase of a new asphalt roller in the amount of $79,420. Sorry, eyes are still a little whacked out. This is a CoStarz purchase. The CoStarz number is included. Our current roller is a 1988 vintage. It has served admirably in its time. It's getting to the point where there are things that it's just extremely difficult to repair on it, and it's kind of where do you start and where do you stop when it starts to need repair. The one that I'm proposing to purchase is also one size larger. We will never do large-scale paving projects. We don't have the manpower, but when we do patchwork, the next size up roller will definitely give us better compaction. It will do a better job for us, and it's still small enough that we can operate it. I did find out from them today. I asked what a trade-in would be. They would give us $1,500 for ours, or we could do municipal bid. So we can talk about that and figure that out internally. Also, for the other item would be to add the 2024 grass mowing service bid to the agenda for approval or rejection. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, then, thank you. We're good then.
Excellent.
You mentioned, something about too cold to get concrete. Was this for sidewalks somewhere? You said Wexton?
Yeah, they're doing the ADA ramps.
Right. So, I would think that maybe it might be a good idea to have a discussion with Suez, because they're the or Veolia, they're the contractor for Veolia. I didn't often, I mean, when the borough ran, the authority ran the water system, we didn't allow stones on sidewalks for the whole winter for the sake of snow blowers picking them up and throwing them in.
It's all gonna be asphalt. They're
Oh, they're
putting,
putting
yeah, they're putting asphalt. There
Okay.
won't be any stone anywhere.
Okay, when you said stone, I thought maybe they were leaving it stone.
No, I
Okay.
may have misspoke. Everything will be asphalt. They have heated beds and triaxles. They can still get hot mix.
Okay,
And they'll use hot mix for their work.
all right, that,
Yeah, everything will be buttoned up.
all right, that meets, I'm not concerned.
Yeah,
Excellent.
we don't, that's a mess. I snow blowed stones before.
Anybody have any other questions? Excellent. Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Agenda item number 11, Police Director Wright.
Good evening. Before I get started, I want to introduce our newest full-time police officer. This is Officer Galen Shirk. Galen's a former Capitol police officer, and when he saw the advertisement that was authorizing a 3-year lateral transfer, which council approved, he found an opportunity to serve in a community-based police department, which we are. And once our leadership team interviewed him, we knew he'd be a great fit. So he's off FTO. He's out tonight working the shift. I wanted him to come by and see what happens at council meetings and to introduce him and thank you for the lateral transfer approval, because here's a product of it. So, thank you very much.
Excellent. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I don't have a lot in my report. We have 3 open full-time positions. We have 3 positions reserved at the academy. They actually attended orientation today. So the 3 future Middletown police officers were spending the day getting prepared for their next 7 months up at the academy. So they're good to go. I don't really have anything else on my report other than some community events we attended. Sergeant Tankerly attends Shop with a Cop, where him and other police officers allow children to purchase presents and things for their families, which is all donated monies. He does that on his own time. We did the Christmas tree lighting. We did the Frosty 5K, which had a bunch of people running, and the rain stopped, and we were all good. That was great. I don't have anything else.
Anybody have any questions for Dan? Mayor, you have anything?
Thank you, Dan.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On your report, you have the noise ordinance.
Yes, we had talked about, we're thinking of proposing a potential change to our noise ordinance. We haven't gotten ready yet to actually do that, but in other municipalities, they have a specific distance limit when it comes to especially vehicles, where ours is unreasonable and words that can be somewhat subjective. The ordinance would be specific.
I think I remember you talking about
Yeah, and once we put something together, we'll put it out there, and if it's something we'd be interested in doing, we can take a look at it.
And what is this Zero Eyes?
The school district is in the process of implementing a program which allows their video systems to recognize firearms and provide notifications out to the local police department. And we've been involved in some of the training that they've done, and I'm not putting it out as an announcement. The school district is doing this. That's their job to promote when it happens. But something they're currently implementing, that if their video system, which is integrated into some kind of computer monitored system, recognizes a firearm, the officers in the area get text alerts on their phones of location and circumstances. So
Pretty cool.
pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Yep.
The noise ordinance, where did you say we're modeling it after?
There's quite a few municipalities that have it. There's actually a model policy put out by the borough. I think it's the Organization of Boroughs or one of those organizations, and other municipalities surrounding us have it. So, and usually it's a 50 feet distance, and most of it's geared towards noise, music or intentional noise. If a motorcycle happens to be a loud motorcycle and a guy's driving in a normal manner that is heard 50 feet away, he's not going to be getting a citation. If he's revving his motor going up a 25-mile-an-hour street for the purpose solely of making noise, instead of that being unreasonable, if I'm hearing it 50 feet away, he's getting a ticket. And
Because I was gonna bring up the example of a Harley. I mean, you're gonna hear a Harley.
right, and I've driven Harleys before, and if you drive them in a responsible manner, even if they're loud, you can drive it in an irresponsible manner, and it's
So there's some subjectivity to that then?
there's some subjectivity to it, certainly. I think there's some any type of noise ordinance, there's some subjectivity. This, I think, would be a little easier for us to enforce, especially radios, loud music.
Right.
And we could potentially limit that to loud radios, as part of the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 12, Viola or the joint venture. Seeing none, does council or the mayor have anything? Okay. At this time, do I have general public comment?
Jack Still, Middletown. The speed table he put up, I'm glad he put a 6-foot one up instead of one of them 1-foot ones when you jerky when you go around. So I guess it's 6 foot or so. So kudos for that. Shirley Clark, you might want to talk to her because she's been tracking the way the water flows through the borough. That might have some effect on some of this PFAS stuff. They said HIA has their own water treatment, and they might even have because of the planes going state to state or country to country, state to another country. They might even have a higher standard that we might have too, so that so a comparison of them might quite not be the same. Matthew, you were talking about fixing the library windows or something. Did you start on that?
No, after numerous attempts, the fellow that I was trying to get a hold of finally decided he didn't want to do the job, so that'll be a project for 2024.
Have you thought about changing the window?
Pretty much anything's on the table once I see what the cost will be to repair what's there.
'Cause they're not on the national historical list, so you don't have that limitation. They have one of our things up there, but I don't think they're on the national list. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Still. Is there any other public comment? Before we adjourn the meeting, I would just like to say what a pleasure it was serving with this council. I appreciate everybody's service. Councilor Kluskevich, you'll be missed dearly, and I do look forward to serving with the next body. So at this time, do I have a motion to adjourn? We will be going to executive session to discuss personnel and potential litigation. We will not be returning.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned.
Test. I don't think this works.